All right. Welcome. I just want to make sure that I am okay. I'm recording. Hi, this is Megan. I am here to present how to prepare your career for the winter season. I know some of you who have registered for this, but not everyone. So I thought I would just give you a quick overview of who I am. I run a small career development agency here in Portland called A Wild New Work. And we offer career mentorship, one-on-one programs, seasonal classes. We've got a podcast and a blog and some other things going on. It's all nature-based, and it's really designed to help people at a deep level in their careers. And so I'm excited to have you and to share some of this nature-based wisdom with you today, and I hope it supports you in your work life. I come from the world of human resources. That's sort of where I got my feet wet in the professional world. And that transitioned into some HR consulting on my own, which became, one-on-one career coaching, which has sort of evolved now into nature-based career development. So that's a little bit about my path. I'm sure there will be other opportunities to learn more about me and all of that, but I want to dive into our material. So I will say that for those of you who are live, or even if you're listening later, I'm in my cedar shed, which is where I work, and I don't usually have any trouble with the internet out here, but if it drops, just sit tight and I'll switch the networks and see if that works, or I'll get on a hotspot. So don't worry, I think everything will be fine. But just to protect the wireless and make sure it stays strong, I am going to turn my video off for the rest of our time together and just have you focus on the slides. So I want to talk about what we will cover today. We're going to talk about an overview of the winter season, so I'll just let you know kind of the dates I'm talking about, the major themes of winter. I'll also talk about the astrology of the season because I think it gives a greater depth to our understanding of what the season has to offer for us. I'll talk about winter for our careers specifically and the opportunities and risks that are inherent in this season and how we can work with them. I'll talk, like I said, about how to work with this time, and then I'll offer some ways that you can get some career support throughout this season. So I'm excited to dive in and share this with you. I want to start by giving you sort of a high-level overview of the Wheel of the Year. So the Wheel of the Year is something that I first learned about through a teacher of mine who teaches sort of Celtic pagan wisdom. And this model, as far as I know, comes out of sort of Northern European pagan traditions. That's not to say that other cultures don't have their own wheels of the year or rhythms to the year, but it is based on a Northern Hemisphere model and the climate and the ecosystems in the Northern Hemisphere. Climates around the equator don't undergo the same rhythms, right? They have more temperate seasons. There's not this same sort of flow of life, death, and rebirth. So it just looks different. And then our friends in the Southern Hemispheres, of course, are approaching summer. They're on the opposite end of the Wheel of the Year. So I just want to be upfront about that and encourage you to take what feels useful here. If your ancestors are from the equator or from the Southern Hemisphere, and if this feels just sort of out of alignment for you, or you don't feel quite synced up to the winter season, I encourage you to just honor that and to learn more about how your ancestors would have been spending this time. And even if your ancestors are, partially or fully from the Northern Hemisphere, learning about what these seasons would have looked like in their climates and in those ecosystems. So I just want to be upfront about that and encourage you to kind of dig in and take what feels resonant to you. But I want to start by telling you about the sort of themes and the cycle that we move through every year. So I'll start with the fall, which is where we are now. The fall begins with the autumn equinox in late September, September 23rd this year. And the autumn equinox is the day each year when there's balance between the time spent in the light and time spent in the dark. So daylight and nighttime are equal. And then between the autumn equinox and the winter solstice, the days are getting shorter and shorter, which I'm sure you're feeling now if you live in the Pacific Northwest or in the Northern Hemisphere generally. some of the big themes of fall, which you may be experiencing now, are surrender, right? We're looking at all the leaves falling from the deciduous trees. We're looking at cyclic change, right? And sort of preparation for winter. Fall and spring are both transition seasons. They're liminal periods. They're bridges between the other two seasons. And we're also, I think, really tapping into our discernment and getting in touch with the wise parts of ourselves that know what needs to go and what needs to stay, and what is worth our time and energy this time of year and what is not working for us anymore. There's a real chance to sort of clear out and start anew. So it's a really rich period, and I hope that you have been feeling that in your own life and career. And then we'll move into the winter, which begins on the winter solstice, which this year is December 20th and lasts until around March 21st. Or I'm sorry, this year it's December 21st and March 20th. It changes a little bit each year. And the winter solstice is the day each year, it's the darkest day of the year. And after the winter solstice, the days will begin to get longer and longer until the summer solstice, which is the height of the daylight and the light. So I'll talk more about the themes of winter as we go, but the big ones that I see are this period of recalibration, transformation, this sort of inner guidance and stillness that's available. And we do this, it's an incredibly important season. We do this in order to prepare for the growing seasons of spring and summer. But without the letting go and the sort of clearing out of fall, there's not often the space for this inner sort of integration and recalibration that we're allowed or afforded in winter. And if we don't do the work of winter, then our spring and our summer will look a lot different, right? Because in the winter, we're allowing the soil to regenerate. We're allowing our own ecosystems to kind of restabilize and go quiet and dormant for a while. And it's really important for us personally as well. So after the winter, of course, we move into spring. The spring equinox on March 20th is the day where, again, just like the autumn equinox, there's balanced or equal light and dark. Of course, the spring is all about rebirth, fresh starts. We sort of plan the seeds that we want to plant in our garden that year. It's this chaotic time of transition, again, between winter and summer. So the weather is up and down. We're going through a lot of change. We're sort of settling into the new growing cycle and seeing what wants to come up. And then in the summer, which begins with the summer solstice in late June, we get to expand upon the seeds that we planted and nurture them and really enjoy the fruits of our labors and find balance between heat and water and, fire and water and light and dark. So that's sort of a high-level overview of the cycles that we're in. And I want to spend some time honing in now on winter. So every season has its own opportunities and risks, or its own sort of benefits and shadow sides. The big opportunities I see available to us each winter are real rest and integration. Like I said, in the winter, we let our soil regenerate, and it may look like there's nothing going on beneath the surface, like nothing's growing, everything's dead, it's all brown or it's under snow. But the truth is that there's a ton going on in the winter. There's so much happening below the surface. The soil is regenerating. It's an incredibly important time. And without it, we can't grow like we want to in the spring and summer, and we can't enjoy the harvest in the fall. Not that we can't, but our opportunities to do so are limited. So rest and integration is critical here. We also have a chance to do some inner recalibration. So in the spring and summer, things are often busy. We're growing a lot. We're tending our gardens. We're, maybe moving into new opportunities in our career. And in the fall, that often happens as well, as we let go of old things that don't work for us and step into new opportunities. I keep hearing from people who are making job changes this fall. And then in the winter, we get to sort of settle in and see where we are and kind of catch our breath a little bit and see what needs to be tended to, what needs to just rest or be let go and kind of have time to reintegrate. which isn't to say that you can't make career changes in the winter at all. But I think the flavor of them or the texture of them, they can be really rich and be done in a way that serves your own sort of energy system and your desire to be integrated and to feel good. It's not the same sort of like pushing or high level, like fast growth that we see in the spring and summer. So change absolutely happens in the winter. I think it just has a different flavor. And I'm going to just pause real quick and just make sure. Okay, I just wanted to check the chat in case anyone's having trouble seeing or hearing. Like I said earlier, in the winter, we're making room for an openness space for growth in the spring and the summer. So it's not a period of doing nothing. It's not a waste of time. It's not the worst part of the year. I think a lot of us carry baggage around the winter because we sort of resist the darkness or the slowing down or the colder temperatures. And that's just something to look at and be aware of in ourselves. The risks of winter I see are stagnation. So of course, in the winter, we have ice, things can freeze over. We can get into a place where it feels like nothing is possible, nothing is moving. There's no healthy movement. And so that's something to just pay attention to. We can also stay sort of caught in this place of darkness or unknown. And the winter solstice reminds us that the light always returns and that there's a place and a tremendous value in being in the dark, which is where we have been and are still going to be until the winter solstice when the days begin to get longer again. But there's this risk, of course, of just staying sort of stuck and in the dark and lacking that clarity that we need, especially in our careers. And then the biggest risk, which I see many, many people fall into, myself included, is the risk of expending too much energy and not letting ourselves rest, not letting our soil become fertile for the spring. It's as if a bear resisted its instinct to hibernate, right? We feel that too. Our bodies know what's happening every day, and we know that the days are getting shorter and there's more darkness, and we may feel that inclination to just rest more or be inside or do less, but we fight it because our brains tell us that we can't, or that there's so much to do, or that resting is being lazy. So I encourage you, and I'll talk more about this as we go, I encourage you to really pay attention to how you cope with and relate to this invitation to do less. And I'll share some ways that I do that and support myself in doing that, even when I don't want to, because it is hard. It goes sort of against how we've been socialized in this culture. I want to share some thoughts about the astrology of the season. And you don't have to know anything about astrology to be with me here. I work with astrology and talk about it because it gives me a better understanding of the flow of a season. So if you don't know anything about astrology, there are 12 zodiac signs, and they sort of cover about a month each. They don't specifically follow our Gregorian calendar, but there are 3 per season. And they help me understand the invitations of each season better. So I just want to share some thoughts about the zodiac signs that we'll be moving through. And these are the signs that the sun will be moving through as we go through the rest of fall and winter. So again, these are my interpretations. You look into whatever resonates to you, take what fits. This is not about any predictions or me being the expert on astrology at all, but I want to share this and you just see what resonates with you. So where we're moving next, we're currently in Scorpio season. That's where the sun is. And on November 22nd, the sun will move into Sagittarius. Sagittarius is a fire sign, which I think is an invitation into transformation, purification. If you think about the role of fire, it is to purify and to change things, right? There's an alchemical process that can happen through fire. It's really, I see, about expanding your options this season. expanding your understanding, expanding what you think is possible, trying new things, really looking at your thoughts and your expectations for your work life the rest of this season, and seeing if you can kind of stretch into new possibilities, new territory. So in a little bit, I'll talk about what this could actually look like in your careers, but wanted to just give you a heads up that we're moving into a new sign soon. After that, starting with the winter solstice into January, late January, will be under the sign of Capricorn. So again, the winter solstice is the darkest day of the year. After that, the light begins to return. Capricorn is an earth sign, so it's about stability and structure. It's about, I think, resources and how we cultivate and use and share our resources. It's really about creating systems around the new possibilities that you've uncovered in Sagittarius season. So every zodiac sign sort of complements or builds upon the last. So if you can kind of get big and expand your options in Sagittarius season, then in Capricorn, you work with creating structure around it. So maybe in Sagittarius season, you really focus on like networking or expanding the options that you have for a job transition. And then a Capricorn season, maybe it's getting back in touch with those people that you've networked with, creating a plan to kind of cultivate those relationships, or looking further into how you want to take advantage of the possibilities and the options that you've created for yourself under Sagittarius. I'll also say that in Capricorn season is when we move through the new year, and I would just encourage each of you to really look at and honor how you feel moving through the new year. I find that there's often all this pressure to, just start anew and like make up this huge plan for how your year is going to be different. And I know that can be healthy and really refreshing, but if you just don't feel that way, I just want to say that it's okay, because in Capricorn season, in the new year, we are still like at the very beginning of winter, truly. And we're deep in the sort of darkness still, the cold. And in the Wheel of the Year tradition, spring, the very first stirrings of spring didn't come until February 2nd, which is the holiday of Imbolc, which is when people would begin to see that their sheep were having lambs, and it's named after the milk coming in for the ewes to feed their lambs. So just honor wherever you are around the new year. If it feels great to come up with a new plan and you want to take advantage of this Capricorn energy in that way, that's wonderful. If you don't feel like it, that's wonderful too. Trust yourself and your body. After Capricorn, we move into Aquarius. So late January into late February. Aquarius is an air sign, so we're talking about intellect, change, levity. Aquarius is sort of an antidote to the stagnant energy that can come from Capricorn, or the sort of stubbornness. It's about rebelling against unjust or unhelpful limits, reinventing yourself, connecting with how you want to contribute in the world. So it's a really beautiful time of career transformation and growth if you want to take advantage of it. It's a wonderful time to be thinking about how you want to reinvent yourself and how you want to reinvent your community or the communities that you care about. And then the final sign of the winter season is Pisces. So late February into late March, right before the spring equinox. Pisces is a water sign, so we're talking about emotion, intuition, and flow, being really compassionate for yourself and others, making as much room as you can for new seeds to be planted in the spring. So it's sort of like the last hurrah, or the last effort to really honor the invitations of winter and prepare yourself for the growth and the change that's to come in this spring. All right, I'm going to take a sip of water. I encourage you to have some water, just settle in. Okay, so I want to talk about winter and our careers specifically. So the opportunities here are the same. The opportunities of winter are always around rest and integration, and we are all working within different limits depending on where we are in our careers. If you're self-employed, then you may have more flexibility and space to rest or be integrated. But it's also true that when we work for ourselves, we don't really have paid time off. And if we're not working, we're not making money. And there can be lots of things that the brain tells us about how it's not okay or not safe to take rest and to integrate. If you are working in an organization, or if you're, employed, then that has its own pressure around what you can and can't do. If you're unemployed, there can also be this sort of scarcity and fear around taking a break from the job search, or, taking a week off of networking. So I'll talk more about how to manage those limits later, but I just want to encourage you that no matter what your limits are, I think there is still space for greater rest and integration, which is so needed. This inner recalibration is also available to us, and this is the part where we get to dream into what we want for 2020. We get to spend time imagining what a wonderful, sort of perfect for us outcome would be in our careers for next year, what we want to build next year, where we want to be this time in 2020. So really letting that dreamy process happen. Again, not in a way that's like planning, getting it all on paper and committing to a certain path, but really letting yourself be dreamy and kind of see what comes up after the soil gets to regenerate, because I guarantee you it will be different than the dreams you have when you're feeling burnt out or overworked or afraid, right? Again, we're doing this because we deserve rest as human beings, and just like nature needs to rest and a period of dormancy, we need that too. And we do it because it's our right, first and foremost, but also because it's the best, most healthy way to prepare for what wants to come in the spring and summer seasons. The risks of winter for our careers are the same as well. Stagnation, so staying where you are because you don't believe you have any other options, staying stuck in a job search pattern that isn't working and doesn't feel good, just essentially like sort of freezing over out of fear or limited beliefs about what you're capable of. Anything can sort of cause us to feel stagnant, but generally I think fear is at the root of it. So notice if you start to feel like you're getting frozen in unhelpful patterns. Of course, we can also stay caught in the unknown, where we're exploring but getting so overwhelmed that our sensory systems get kind of flooded. We don't know what should come next. We don't know what we really want in our careers. It can just be this experience of wanting to be open but feeling so overwhelmed by the options and so confused that we just feel stuck in the darkness, and it feels like the light's never going to come. And so that is a risk as well. And of course, where most of us get caught up is expending too much energy in this season and not letting us regenerate, not letting ourselves sort of rest and recalibrate for what's ahead in the next year. And it's not just us. We're not making these choices just out of ignorance or self-sabotage. The truth is that we all work within capitalism, right? We work within a system and an economy that hates rest, right? Our economy is predicated on productivity. We have to remain productive in order for this economy to function, right? And so if you work in retail, this might be the busiest time of your year. If you work in accounting or finance or even human resources, you're probably doing a bunch of end of year stuff. And a lot of organizations will do like strategy and like big visioning stuff at the beginning of the year, which really doesn't align with what we know about the wheel of the year and the cycles. So there can be a lot of demand for excess energy, and you're not alone in that, and that's not entirely your fault, right? We each get to decide how we want to cope with that system and how we want to cope with the demands that are placed on us. We can also expend a lot of energy if we're in a job search and feeling really frustrated over trying to get hired this time of year, frustrated about, the holiday schedules and things slowing down, feeling anxious about whether we will be able to find something in this time of year. So I'll talk more in a minute about what to do with that, but just want to acknowledge the fact that there's a risk here of just expending too much energy and overdoing it so that by the time you get to spring, you're tired and you don't feel like there is any new possibility, and you don't feel like you want to plant any new seeds because you've been working so hard in the winter and it's been feeling like drudgery. So I want to support you in getting out of that kind of cycle. So I want to share now a quick overview of how you can prepare for what's to come, what's in the winter. I'll talk a little bit about what needs to be let go of. So we're still in this autumn season. We're still in this place where we can continue to shed what doesn't work for us. We will talk about how to create more possibilities and options for yourself in your career. And then I'll share some thoughts about how to make room for greater integration. And all of this will be supplemented. I'll send a worksheet with a bunch of journaling prompts for you in the follow-up email to this webinar. And I encourage you to just spend some time sitting with those questions and writing about them, or just letting them sort of live in your body, thinking about them. So yeah, just keep an eye out for that. That will supplement where I'm going next. So let's talk first about letting go and the work that we can still do in this autumn season. Autumn is all about transition. It's all about sort of mimicking the trees and letting go of the leaves, or separating ourselves from the trees that don't fit for us. There's this separation that's happening that is healthy and normal and nourishes the soil, right? If you look at all the leaves that fall on the grass, some people like to rake them up, but it's also wonderful compost and nutrition for the soil. And so we get to decide what else needs to be let go of at this time in our lives and at this time in our careers, in order to make more room for what's to come in the winter and the seasons following. A wonderful area to look at where you need to let go of things is the obligations that you feel. So things that you say you have to do. Notice how often you say, I have to do this, or I can't do that, or I must do that. And really looking at what you've committed to and how those commitments serve you or serve others. And if they're really out of alignment for you, if they're really draining, I would encourage you to just look at those very objectively, and ask yourself where something could be let go, where some surrender could come in and support you in feeling better and not feeling so tied up by obligations. It's also an excellent time to let go of old beliefs about what's possible in your career. So if you have a belief that's telling you that the winter is the worst time to get hired, or it's the worst time to find a new person for your team, or it's the worst time to, go for that promotion or ask for that salary increase, I encourage you to really be really scrutinize that belief, because there's tremendous possibility this time of year. It just may look different, or it may happen differently than you expect. So really honoring what it is you want and being open to how that might unfold this season. And sorry, this next bullet point is sort of a duplication of what's above. So I will move on. The second area I want to talk about is expanding possibility. So again, we are in Sagittarius season until the winter solstice, which is an excellent time to look at where there is new life to be had, where you want to learn something new. Where do you feel interested? Where does there feel like refreshment? How can you really open your mind a little bit more and open the possibilities in your career before the winter comes? Meeting new people is an excellent way to do that. And if you are in a job search or transition, or if you're even thinking about a transition, I encourage you to come up with a networking strategy or approach that really fits for you. For some, it will be, going to events and mingling with lots of people. For some, it will be focusing on one-on-one coffee dates or lunches or walks, and just meeting people in your industry or in the organization that you're interested in pursuing. And there's a lot of pressure, I think, to do networking the right way, but there really is no right way. And I would especially encourage you to just focus on meeting with and talking to the people who interest you, where there's some sort of resonance, even if you have no idea how they could help you, no idea where there's where things might align in the future, generally, if there's some sort of resonance, it's a good sign that it can only help you to meet and be in one another's lives. So I encourage you to, if it feels right for you, to get out there a little bit extra between now and the winter solstice, between now and, the holiday season, and just expose yourself to new people. I think it's also a wonderful time to spend time each day envisioning what you want for next year. Really getting a clear picture in your head for what your ideal workday would look like, what your ideal next step is, and really training your brain to expand possibilities and imagine something new, and getting really, again, concrete about it. So like if you are imagining if you're imagining your ideal workday and it feels good to imagine what your office would look like or the colors on the walls, do that. Really spend time imagining what would feel really good for you. So the last area I want to focus on is on how to make more room for rest and integration. We all have to make choices, again, within our limits, but with regard to how we're going to make more space for rest and integration this season. One of the best, most impactful ways I have found to do this is by embracing darkness. And I have a winter darkness practice that I will send you, actually. I think I have it. But it's essentially just one night a week or whenever you feel like it, not using electricity to light your life in the evenings. So I mean this literally about embracing darkness, spending an evening each week or however often feels good to you in the dark or in candlelight, and just noticing how that feels. It feels, to me, it's like so nutritive. It feels like my body just wants to soak up that darkness and that candlelight. I always go to bed much earlier than I normally do because I'm not inundated by screens or fooling my body into, not making melatonin. So embracing darkness literally and metaphorically is incredibly helpful. Just doing less is important. Where can you clear more space and time in your calendar? Your work is not going to do this for you. If you work for an organization, they're not going to say, you should make more space in your life for the winter season. If you work for yourself, your clients are going to tell you that. If you're in a job search, your brain will probably tell you that's the worst idea ever. But I encourage each of you to look at where you can really pare down and do less. Of course, we have to look at managing anxiety this time of year because there is a lot of fear around how to make transitions this time of year. I think a lot of us, experience anxiety about what we did or didn't accomplish this year, what we want next, what feels possible next. So again, within the confines of this capitalist system, which tells us we always have to be producing or we're worthless, I want to share some really small, easy ideas for how to manage some of this. One is to really look at and consider taking social media breaks. For a while, and I need to get back into this, for a while I would, delete Instagram or whatever off of my phone every weekend, or I would take full week-long breaks away from social media, even away from email. And I encourage you to consider how you might pare down your technology use this time of year, because we know it's addictive and anxiety-inducing, and that's one small but really powerful way that you can take some control of your energy and mental space this time of year. You will also be starting tomorrow, and I'll share a note in the follow-up email, you'll be getting a free course from me called Work as a Sacred Practice, which will include like a very deep dive into how to bring more of yourself and your spirituality into your work life, which is incredibly nutritive and helpful in managing anxiety, especially in the winter. If you don't have a morning practice already, I encourage you to consider implementing one, especially this season, as a way to claim your space, claim clarity at the beginning of every day, even if it's just a few minutes, having some sort of practice that you cultivate and come to every day, or whenever you feel like you can. Of course, journaling and self-reflection is an excellent use of time this season. And then getting outdoors, which I think a lot of people forget or think isn't really worth doing this season, unless we're out, playing in the snow. But even if it's rainy or cold or dreary or dark, there's still so much benefit from getting outside, getting that fresh air, and reminding your brain that things are okay, that life still exists even in this season, that possibility still exists. Remembering that even if the soil is frozen or even if a lake is frozen, there is still tremendous microbial invisible life happening underneath. So those are some concrete ideas. And again, I'll share a worksheet with some specific questions for you to consider how you want to work with this time, in your unique situation. And things might feel hard right now. They might feel hard throughout the winter, right? Winter brings its challenges for sure. There's less food. There's sometimes less access to water. The animals and the plants are feeling this as well. But it's also true that this could be a fantastic, rejuvenating season. It could be exactly what you need. Both can be true at the same time. It can be difficult and incredibly rejuvenating. So I encourage you to hold space for that. Finally, I just want to share some resources if you do want to go deeper this season. I work with people one-on-one through a career mentorship program, and it's a good fit for people who know that change is coming. They know they want better in their careers, but they're just not sure where to start or how to do it on their own, or they feel so kind of overwhelmed or in that stagnant place that they're just not sure what steps to take next. It's a flexible 12-week process that includes twice monthly calls, work in between those calls that we do together, and a lot more. It's a robust program that I'm really proud of and have been running in different iterations for a number of years. And it's all nature-based. So if this resonates with you, if this approach resonates and you want to really engage this winter, I encourage you to reach out. I'm really proud to say that through this process, people have gotten, into new, better jobs that they've wanted, gotten promotions, started side gigs, explored entrepreneurship or moved into that, or have just made their current situation better. So I believe in the process, and I believe in your ability to make positive change this winter, and I'd love to do that with you. So in the follow-up email, I'll send a link to how to set up a free 20-minute consultation, which is also just on my website, awildnewwork.com/mentorship. But yeah, I would love to work with you if this resonates. So thank you so much for being here with me. Like I said, I'll send a follow-up email with the worksheet, the slides, a recording, and a link to set up a consultation if you'd like to go deeper this winter. But I'm just so grateful for your presence today. I hope this felt helpful, and I wish you a really lovely, powerful winter season. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye.